Welcome, everyone. I'd like to say also to start with a huge thank you to the guys from InPartner. Haven't they done a magnificent job? Please give them all a round of applause. And doesn't that jacket on its own deserve a round of applause? Now, some of you will be asking why there's chairs at the back. Well, Graeme and I are Brits, and so that means we're quite polite chaps. And we looked at them and we thought, it'd be a bit embarrassing to be sitting in chairs that were staggeringly more comfortable than the ones you're sitting in, so we decided to stand anyway. So I'd like to introduce Graeme. Graeme is Scottish. He's married with 4 adult children and he lives in southwest London. He's a qualified chartered accountant who then turned into a CFO, who then turned into a CEO, who then turned into the chairman of a huge reseller. He's got 35 years IT channel leadership experience in distribution and the channel partner space in the UK, EMEA, and globally. And he says he loves the industry, he loves the dynamics and the people in it. And before we start, what I'd like to do is we've spent so much time today talking about channel partners. So I thought it was about time we actually had one of the channel partners saying, what the heck do we want? So before we start, Graeme, tell us a little bit, who are Softcat?
So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Rod. I'm going to spend a minute just telling you about Softcat. I'm not selling Softcat. I just think it's important for you to understand a little bit about the dynamics that we have as the leading VAR in the UK and Ireland. We're a FTSE, a London-based, quoted company on the FTSE, a FTSE 250 company. And to put us in kind of dimensions, we're about a £3 billion sales company with about 2,500 people. We profit last year, or EBIT, if you want to use that term, operating profit is what we call it, about 140 million. And 30 years we've been in existence, and remarkably, all of that growth has been organic. We exist, I'm sure you know this, but it's very, very simple what we do. We're a service company in providing IT infrastructure solutions, technology and solutions to the B2B market. We operate in the corporate segment, SMB, corporate enterprise, and also public sector. And the largest of that being the SMB corporate business. And from a technology point of view, the way we really tend to look at things is we bring to market hybrid workspace, hybrid platforms, and then working across those 2 key areas of technology, we bring to bear comms and networking, we bring to bear data and AI, and also cybersecurity. Maybe just to drill down to one other point for you quickly is that, and I think this is what makes us a little bit different, or one of the things that makes us a bit different, is that I know a lot of people are pivoting towards software and pivoting hard towards software and to services. Well, first of all, we're a little bit cautious about services. We do, 15% of our business, so that equates to around about 450 million is services. So I would argue that whilst we describe ourselves as a VAR, and you'll probably hear me call us a reseller today because we resell technology, we also add value to it, but we also have MSP content to the business as well. But we tend to, on services, we tend to either not do it at all, or if we can do it and we can scale it and we can make money, we'll do it ourselves. And if it's a little bit out of our swim lane, we're quite happy to partner with people. But the point I really wanted to make was around hardware, was just that we think hardware is still cool. I know that's a shock to many people in a market that's flatlining pretty much. We think hardware is okay. But at the end of the day, it won't have escaped anybody's notice that software needs hardware to run on, whether that hardware is in the cloud or on premise. But hardware for us is about 25-30% of our business. It's as profitable as software. We have a low penetration in hardware, as we do in software and services in the market. Although we're the largest VAR in the UK, we've only got 5% of the market. And we see taking further share and penetrating further on hardware just as exciting, and you'll hear me refer to it later on probably again, just as exciting as the software and services opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So Graeme, talk to us a little bit about Softcat and the strategic focus areas you've got as a company.
So we've got a slide here, which I won't refer to directly, but it gives you a flavor of what we're trying to do. And for those of you who are in the Tiffany Boba session this morning, I thought she absolutely nailed the importance of employees and our people. I would say that in a market, as a VAR, it's very difficult to differentiate. It's a fragmented market, it's difficult to differentiate. I would argue that the technology and expertise and experience from a technology and a services point of view that we can bring to bear to our customers is relatively easily matched and is matched by plenty of other people in the UK. What makes us different is two things. It's ultimately the biggest thing, and we've attributed around about 80% of what we do to that. The slide's moved off, Rod, by the way, if you want to move it back. What we attribute about 80%, as it says here, market-leading customer engagement. So the biggest positive differentiator we have is our market-leading, the culture that we've got of customer experience and customer service. And we do that very much, as Tiffany said this morning, by having an outstanding commitment to our people. Even at 2,500 people, it started from day one with the founder, Peter Kelly, and even now today, we don't let anything get in the way of focusing on our people. It's very easy to speak a good language and talk about how important the people are. It's very easy also to let things get in the way. But if you prioritize your people, you make it a great place to work. People care for each other. They want people to succeed. We're trying to say yes to the customer at every opportunity. You throw in a big dose of reward and recognition in there, all of those things that have been mentioned at various times today. And you don't let anything get in the way, you will be successful. We pride ourselves on our leadership team knowing what's going on in the company, knowing what the pulse of the company is through informal and formal mechanisms. The leadership team's very approachable. And I would say, I'm not in the day-to-day business anymore, I'm a non-executive chair, but I would say that we've always and will continue to make sure that we know that what the critical success factors are for our people and what's making them successful, and we continue to invest in those, and we know what their barriers of success to and remove those. The other 20% of what we believe is important to our customers is the breadth of what we do. We've got the largest portfolio of technology fueled by market-leading vendors in the country. Our breadth of customers at over 10,000 across those segments I mentioned earlier on is really important to our vendors. And then on top of that, and this will be the basis perhaps for some discussion or some answers later on top of that, I point to two other factors. One is the fact that we take on so many first-time jobbers, graduates and apprentices. We typically in a year, we're recruiting 250 to 300 first-time jobbers. And the beauty of these people is that they're young, they're ambitious, they're full of energy, they're quite IT savvy already, not like old farts like me. And we can give them the skills. If they fit the culture and we bring them in, we can give them the skills of selling if they're in sales, of technology if they're in specialist technology areas. And they don't come with any corporate baggage. They haven't worked anywhere else before. They don't come with pre-packed ideas of how to do things and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And we turn them into great people. And in fact, our chief commercial officer, who's in our 10-person leadership team, a chap called Richmond Griffith, started the company as a graduate himself. So that's really important. And then the other kind of piece that I think is really important, Rod, is just our appetite to invest today for tomorrow's growth. As Tiffany said earlier on, she doesn't think the pace of change is decelerating. It certainly isn't. Whether it's accelerating or not, I don't know. But our appetite and willingness to invest today for tomorrow's growth is second to none. And at the end of the day, the reason we exist is to help our customers with the pace of change, with the complexity and the range of choice that they have in their technology.
So picking up on that, you're investing for growth. What sort of areas are you investing in? What are some of the key focuses, the key focus changes in 2024 versus, say, 2023, 2022?
Well, it's a great question, and I'm very lucky to be able to answer it, given that we had a strategy day with the team last Thursday in a board meeting, so it's kind of fresh in my memory. I think obviously, and I'll rattle through them if I may, but I think one of the things we've got to do is make sure that we understand what some of the key market trends are and make sure we're in the right position to help our customers and help ourselves through those trends. So things like marketplace, things like as a service, things like AI, and things like public cloud and how public cloud, the maturation of public cloud are really important areas for us to focus on. We want to lean into our enterprise business. As I said, overall, the company, we're a market leader, but we've only got 5% of the market. We're underrepresented on enterprise, so we want to lead into enterprise customers a little bit more. Not change our addressable market, but just do better. And our portfolio and sophistication of supporting value has got to a point where we're more relevant to those enterprise customers now, both on the corporate and the public sector side. These are my words, not my team's. They probably curl up and die if they heard me say this, but we want to be amazing with Microsoft. I don't know if you've noticed, but Microsoft are a pretty significant player in our industry these days, and a lot of the successful VARs and MSPs and what have you have Microsoft near the top of their vendor roster. We're the same. Microsoft's our biggest vendor, but I think we can do more and better with them, and we need to partner with them really, really closely. We want to extend our multinational network. Our focus is in UK and Ireland, but we do have lots of customers in UK and Ireland who need help overseas with deployment, so we've got a network of branches to help them with that. We want to extend that, and we want to keep a close eye on M&A as well. We're quite interested in going to another market one day, maybe the US, actually, we'll see. Nothing active in place right now, so you can't misquote me. And also maybe build some niche capabilities in the UK as well, something around Microsoft, perhaps something around data AI, or something around public cloud management and services.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, last one.
Almost
forgot. Having said we don't let anything get in the way of our people, the most important one I didn't mention there is making sure that our culture and our people stay front and center in everything we do. Thank you.
So, picking up on some of the things you said, you can't have a channel conversation today without someone mentioning AI. What's Softcat's view on AI? What are you doing? How do you see it evolving?
Well, as we all know, AI is relatively an immature but maturing rapidly technology at the moment. I think we're all learning. And at Softcat, what we're doing is we're making sure we're going to any vendor that's talking about their AI plans. We're making sure we're staying very close to them and make sure we understand what we're doing. Interestingly, we're also staying very close to our customers to understand what their concerns are, educate them every step of the way to the extent we can. But there's already deals emerging. And Rod, you and I talked about one I mentioned last night or this morning. There's already some deals emerging. For example, one customer that we've got was actually quite a small customer in terms of number of people, but have this big, basically could be up to £100 million worth of deal with us, and it's back to hardware again. It's the hardware that's supporting a born with AI company that's private equity funded, that is basically going to use AI intelligence alongside some sort of quant computing type applications to monetize AI. We've seen other companies coming up with some considerable interest in AI, real interest, so not tomorrow or 6 months or whatever, on the governance and compliance side. So I think that's really interesting. Training and education, as I said, is everything. Microsoft are committed to, I think, train 1 million people in 2024 around Copilot, so that's pretty interesting. Lots of use cases already in play. We've got 50, I think, or so Copilot licenses ourselves to make sure we understand what that technology can do and provide use cases for our own use, but also make sure we understand what our customers are looking at. And it's again, good partnership with Microsoft around that. What's clear is that the take-up of something like Copilot is still very slow. It's expensive, and customers can't really see the ROI fully on AI yet. But some of those things that we're seeing that everybody's seeing and reading about, proposal writing, marketing collateral, coding, presentations, minutes and actions from meeting, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a lot of use cases going on. I think an interesting one for me, there's a kind of pro and a con to this one, is that one of the uses of AI that we can see is AI enabling our sales guys to get back to, salespeople to get back to the customer quicker and more effectively on an initial proposal around some customer challenges or needs. And that sounds really good. If that helps us get back to the customer in a more informed way quicker, then that's really helpful. But it may also occur to you, it certainly occurred to us, that if we can do that, our customers can do it too. So does that make the customer rely on us less because they can do some of that initial work themselves, and we come in later in the cycle and perhaps are unable to add as much value as we could previously? So I think on AI, those would be some of the kind of key things for me. I noticed in the previous presentation, I only came in at the end of it, but what is key and what we're doing at Softcat and how we are able to help our customers now is, I saw on that last slide, it was all about data structure and data governance. If you don't have good data and you don't have good data governance and compliance, you're not going to be able to benefit from different applications around AI. Thankfully, we put in a new financial system a while back. We've got that data structure in place. We're investing more money on it ourselves in-house, and we're also helping our customers to make sure that they've got that right structure and governance in place as well.
So what we've promised is we're going to tell people what it takes to work with a huge company like Softcat. £3 billion, $3.9 billion. So you're sitting there, you're the CEO of Softcat, I'm a vendor, and I really want an executive level relationship with you, Graeme. Can I come and see you? What's your response?
That's a very leading question. It's usually no. But a no with reason. I'll come back to when executive kind of relationships are important with vendors. At the end of the day, maybe in answer to your question, I can sort of talk about one or two things that typify a good relationship, a productive relationship with a vendor. We're still a little bit old school. We've got lots of people in the office, maybe not on a Monday and a Friday, but for the rest of the time. And we're talking to customers all the time. A big internal sales team supported by a lot of also internal technical support specialists and expertise. And if the vendor is not in the office with us, dealing with questions and queries, training our teams, being flexible about price when there's a deal going on or what have you, then that's not good enough. Another vendor will outmuscle them on that point. So that whole account manager relationship and presence is key. Our account managers are incentivized on front-end margin. And they also, so that's an interesting point, I'll maybe come back to that. But they're also, they set the price and they choose the vendor together with the customer themselves. So coming and talking to me and say, Graeme, could you do a big splash across the company for IBM, for example, just to pick a name out of the hat, and really push the sales guys to get more engaged and all the rest of it? Well, not really. Our account managers have that autonomy, and they get paid a commission on the gross profit that they earn. So having good technology is kind of a given, and having technology not that's just good. We're not really, we describe our technology offering as leading edge, not bleeding edge. And what I mean by that is we're not going to create markets for vendors, but what we are going to do is when the demand and the need is there for our customers, they want contemporary infrastructure, and they start asking for certain vendors that maybe aren't as prominent on our line card. That's the point at which we'll start investing a lot more time. So working with those account managers, as I say, is key. The other thing is, and something that I don't understand why vendors don't do a little bit more of this, is working with our new account managers. I just said that we hire a ton of people, first-time jobbers, and a lot of those guys, the vast majority of those guys go into sales. I use the word guys generically, but it upsets some people, so apologies for that. So if I was a vendor, I would spend more time with the account managers that are new to the organization, because once you've been there as an account manager for 3 or 4 years, you have an established way of working. You lean towards Lenovo, or you lean towards Nutanix, or you lean towards Microsoft, or whatever you're putting together. You've created a success pattern, not just with vendors, but with certain people that support those vendors and those technologies inside the company as well. So it's quite difficult to shift them out of that routine, if you like, and that comfort zone. And so if I was a vendor, I would definitely go and deal more with the new guys and get them spun up to speed quickly.
Picking up on that for a second, Graeme, give some specifics. Get involved in training sessions with the new guys? How do I identify those new guys in Softcat? What are you going to do to help me work with them?
For us, the identification is simple. The new recruits from a sales perspective are in a sales development program for approximately a year. They have to graduate to get out of it. And it's all about training and education and bringing use cases to them and talking about, look, we did this here. This was our experience. The customer's now gone from whatever size it was to this size. It's opened the door for further technology sales in there. It created this margin and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's all about training and education. Outside of that, I think back to your question about executive relationships, they're important to a point. It's important for us at executive level to have good sponsorship inside our vendor partners. It's important to be on their radar. If there's a big challenge or a big opportunity that needs escalation, then you've got a vehicle to do that. But quite honestly, the leadership team sitting in meetings with vendors on a frequent basis is not a good use of everybody's time. We do it, but we try and make sure we do it with a low enough cadence to get value and not do it unnecessarily.
So every vendor in the room's got a partner program.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what matters. MDF and co-op, marketing dollars, how important are they to Softcat? What are the things that make you go, yeah, I can use this? What are the things that make you go, nah, not for us?
Well, I think vendors, I'll sort of build to that if I can. I think, for account managers, front-end margin is everything. For Softcat as a business, we're obviously interested in the combination of front-end margin and back-end margin. So we're not saying, by saying front-end is everything to account managers, we're not saying back-end doesn't matter to us. What we do, though, at Softcat with that back-end is we allocate that to costs and investments we've made around the salespeople to make them successful and able to go in and deliver solutions to customers. On top of that, it's important for us to be able to, at times, work with our vendor partners with on-top funds that are not allocated or contractual, or they just appear because we come up with plans to go after joint white space. We're not interested in cannibalizing existing customer business with one vendor with another competing vendor. We're not interested in doing that. But what we are interested in, if there's white space where we're not represented, and neither is the vendor, we're very interested in partnering and going after that with on-top funding. And then to your point on the programmatic side, deal registration is key. MDF is key. If we talk about deal registration for a second, deal registration is essential. It gives us the confidence to commit to the customer. We've probably already got the customer advocacy, to get to the point of deal registration. But when we get the vendor advocacy, which we do through deal registration, we can commit fully to all of the statement of works and everything we need to do there. We can commit to a price. By committing to a price, we're committing to a margin and a return on that business. And deal registration it's almost unthinkable not to have deal registration or something similar in place with our vendors. From a marketing point of view, what would I say on marketing? First of all, I'd say that probably most of you in this room are a lot more sophisticated and cleverer and better at marketing than we are. We tend to be more, most of the marketing and the awareness that we create around what we can do, we do through our sales guys, if I'm honest. A lot of the marketing that we do is vendor funded and pushed and constructed. So one of the things that we ask our vendors for is to keep educating us on marketing and keep bringing best practice to us and help us get better and make sure that we're aligned on those marketing initiatives from an activity and an ROI point of view as well. I think, that's probably it on the marketing side. We do tons of stuff. We do incentives and training and podcasts and customer events and all those good things that make us better with vendors. So the marketing is pretty essential to us as well. You've got to have MDF. I think the other thing I'd say is that, maybe two other things, is that the marketing for us has to be customized, it has to be able to customize. If the vendor's coming in saying it's going to be like this and it's got, there's no room for change, we don't like that. We have a certain way of engaging and talking to our customers. And if we can't put our Softcat stamp on things, we don't like it. We're not going to fundamentally change the goals or anything, but we want to be able to customize. I think if those marketing programs are too complex and burdensome, then obviously that's not good for either party. So there'd be a couple of other things that we would kind of perhaps look out for.
Okay. Incentives for your sales guys, Graeme.
Yeah.
Can I incent them? Do I incent them individually? Do I incent them through Softcat? How do you want that to work?
Probably better than it does today. One of the problems we've got with incentives, by incentives you mean trips and experiences and
money,
vouchers,
whatever.
There's too many of them. And we're our own worst enemy at it. We again, quite old school. This sort of stuff was going on when I joined distribution back in an IT distributor back in 1988. This sort of stuff was going on then, and it still seems to work today. I think the problem with it is there's too many of them. One vendor will do something because another vendor's doing something. So I think there's a better use of the money that goes into it, if I'm honest. I think if vendors ring-fence that funding and sat down with us and said, well, okay, you're not turned on by all these incentives that are going on. What would your best use of that money be? I think that would be a valuable conversation to have. I think our salespeople become completely distracted. I don't know how some of them hit their targets and sell what they do because they seem to be out of the country most of the time. I can see it on their Instagram and LinkedIn posts, unfortunately. What we don't allow, I think was the other part of your question, what we don't allow is for vendors to go directly to our sales teams. It has to be through the company. We at least have to control what they are putting in place to the extent, they can't go straight to our salespeople and pay them around incentives. But, I'm not saying there isn't a place for them. And they're incentives, but they don't really incentivize salespeople most of the time to change behavior. They reward them, perhaps, but in terms of modifying their behavior and what they might do at different times, I personally don't think it has a huge effect. And I think we've got to a point, at least at Softcat, where there's just too many of these damn things.
Mm-hmm. You're in a sales situation.
Yeah.
You've got a major sale coming up. What do you want from the vendor to help you make that sale? Do you want just give us the technical expertise, we'll do everything else? At what point do you want them involved, and how involved do you want them to be?
I think the vendor can be involved a little bit or a lot, and I think it would depend on the situation, but that's something that we've got to discuss and align on. We want, for big deals, we want flexibility around credit. We want some price flexibility as well. We want to make sure that, we want deal registration, as we already mentioned. We just want an aligned approach into the customer. We want vendors from time to time, by the way, to bring us deals as well. We're not the sole, we don't believe that we should be the sole finder of deals. And in fact, we're not. So I'm not being critical anyway. Vendors often bring us deals because they believe that the way we deliver them to customers and the relationship that we already have established with those customers is the right route to take. So that works really well. I'd say it doesn't work so well if vendors start getting involved in two areas. One is timelines for the deal. When the financial pressures start coming in for closing deals at the end of the quarter, and it's all driven by the vendor, and it's the last thing in the world the customer wants. And then, excuse me, and there's added pressure put on because, yeah, you can have this special price, but you can only have it to the 31st of January. That's really not that helpful most of the time for a customer, and it drives artificial behavior, and there's always tension and other things that come into play. I think the other thing that the vendor should never do, and it happens sometimes, and it's probably one of the biggest sources of issues we have with vendors, on the odd occasion it does happen, is vendors talking to the end customer about price. The minute they cut the channel out of that price discussion, it causes all sorts of issues, and it ultimately ends up probably being our margin that gets eroded, and that can't be acceptable. So, yeah, there would be some of the kind of key areas I would point to.
Okay. A vendor channel account manager comes into Softcat. What are you looking for them to do? What makes you go, wow, that person's visit was brilliant, or, you know, why did my people waste their time?
I think it's some of the things I've already said. I mean, if we've got had a clear discussion with the vendor about what it is they're going to do, or what we're going to do jointly, should I say, that we know what piece of the action they're taking, we know what piece of the action we're taking. It's supported by, you know, some marketing initiatives that we feel like we've got the right level of accreditation and expertise in-house to support the discussions we need to have with the customer, that they will support us in some of those discussions as well, that they won't do some of the behaviors I've just talked about a second ago. I think it works really well. I mean, you know, we don't own customers. I always talk about not owning customers. We borrow customers, and we're only as good with customers as our last deal. But once we work really, really hard with customers over a long period of time to develop trust and loyalty, and once we've engaged with, in any one of those areas I talked about before, hybrid platform, hybrid workspace, networking comms, AI data, cybersecurity, once we've done a deal with a customer, typically they'll come back for more, because we know that we've got, as I said before, a really broad portfolio of technology to provide the customer, and we know that our customers are consuming those technologies. So if we can give them an outstanding experience, they'll come back for more. So making sure that the reason for mentioning that is making sure that the vendors understand the power of the customer relationships we've got in place, and that we can deliver on the customer needs, and the vendor delivers on the technical needs, and the ultimately price, although price is not the major part of the discussion. It ends up being quite important, but only once you've got a solution in place. Those are the sorts of you've got to be present. Some of our best vendor account managers are in our offices all the time, talking to the salespeople incessantly, training them, just making them really competent and capable to have the discussions, knowing where their level is, and knowing that the account managers then know that if they need to take that conversation to the next level, they've got people either inside our company or inside the vendors that they can go to, and that they'll get a quick response around that.
And you mentioned when we were talking 400 vendors that you deal with.
Roughly, yeah.
If every one of those came in and did a training session, your people would have no time to do anything. How do you pick the ones where you go, yeah, we're going to let you in and we're going to give you access to our people? What makes you go yes? What makes you go no?
It's a really tough one to answer, that one. So we have to manage it, to your point. We can't let 400 people come in and talk to our people. I think you just made that point. We've got, it's 10 or 11 offices in the UK, so we have got an ability to have multiple vendors in multiple offices, so we can spread it that way, which is helpful. By the way, having multiple offices in a country helps us with our culture as well. So we don't have, although I said we had 2,500 people, and we've got particularly large offices in London, Manchester, and Marlow. But by having a fragmented office structure, if you like, which allows us to get closer to the customers, gives promotional opportunities to our staff, and allows us to tap into lots of different recruitment markets. What it does allow us is to have smaller offices, and therefore kind of have a culture that's alive and front and center. I'm now forgetting what the question was. I don't know why I mentioned it. But it was about the...
How do you manage who's going to come in and train?
That's right.
If I want to come in and train Softcat, who do I talk to? How do I get your guys to go, yeah?
I think I was playing for time there. So the big vendors get automatic rights and they get scheduled in and what have you. I think if you're a smaller vendor, and this is true, we have a real challenge, not just with the vendors that are already on the line card and how we schedule them in. So we manage it, and size matters, and what we're trying to do with our technology matters, and you put those two together and you come out with a schedule, and some get more access than others. But as I say, that regional map is helpful. If you're a smaller vendor that perhaps we haven't heard of much before, to get interest at Softcat, we have to start hearing and seeing that interest coming from customers. As I said before, leading edge, not bleeding edge. We're not creating markets, we're helping customers, manage challenges or keep them competitive and give them a contemporary IT infrastructure. So if you're smaller, first of all, you've probably started up with some success and got onto the customer's radar, probably through a direct model. So if you're coming, and everybody wants a piece of Softcat, every vendor under the sun comes to us and says, you've got this great reach, you've got 10,000 customers in the UK, nobody's got that reach, you're growing like mad, And we say, to get onto the, first of all, customer interest. Secondly, they have to value the channel. They have to make a commitment to the channel because they're usually moving from a direct engagement. They have to fund some resources. We're not going to fund early stage resourcing for a vendor that's still breaking into the market. And they have to take a long-term view. Vendors don't grow like Mopsy overnight, and they have to grow not just their business, but they have to grow their way of working with us and what makes them successful working with Softcat and what doesn't. So those are some of the kind of key attributes a small or an emerging vendor need to have.
And just drilling into a couple of those, you talked about commitment to the channel. When someone walks in, what are the sort of signs where you go, yes, these guys really are genuinely committed to the channel? What are you looking for?
It's all of the things we talked about. It's having technology that's desired and talked about and wanted by customers. It's about providing a great dialogue and a rich dialogue and that training and presence with our salespeople. It's about having a margin that the sales guys can get behind, because at the end of the day, if you put a deal, if you have two competing vendors for the similar technology in front of a salesperson, and one margin is 2x the other, and to all intents and purposes, everything else is equal, they'll go for they're quite coin operated. They'll go for the higher margin one, assuming that's something that's part of a solution that's acceptable to the customer. So having a decent margin on the products as well, and then not dicking about with any kind of direct engagements with the customer. Not flip-flopping between, well, we've come from a direct background, but now we're embracing the channel, but we might take some of those customers on an ad hoc basis. Give us clarity, give us predictability, so that we know when it's our deal and we're working with you as a partner, and we know when it's your deal and we shouldn't go anywhere near it. Be consistent, be predictable, give us that clarity, and then things are fine.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about resources and the resource you're looking for from a newer vendor. What kinds of resources do you want?
Usually, it's mostly it's a lot financial. It's all the MDF and the programs that we talked about. It's having sales presence in the office, and it's about having technical expertise that we can lean on if we don't have it ourselves, and it's working closely. A lot of the vendor sales teams now have a channel motion as well. This whole event has talked about how positive the channel is, and how much we should be investing in it and being even more sophisticated about how we do things. And the vendors are the same. So more and more now, they've got their own sales force who may be engaging with customers directly, but it's channel business. They're an extended sales force, if you like, for Softcat. I mean, we're really their extended sales force, but they've got some of their own resources. So I think if they've got those characteristics, then, and we're working really, really closely with their sales teams, then that works really well. So sales resource, technical resource, and in-office presence, I'd say, were key.
And if you look at the overall relationship with a vendor, forgetting everything we've talked about at the moment, what other things are you looking for? What makes you go, yes, these are the kind of things, they might be program elements, they might be relationship elements. What makes you go, yeah, these are the guys we want to do business with?
I think we've covered it, Rod. I can't think of anything else that we want from our vendors that we don't get today. Ultimately, we want to grow with our vendors, and we want to grow faster than the market. So we want vendors that are here today. We want vendors that take a short-term and a longer-term view with us, vendors that will invest in us, vendors that will grow with us. About 2/3 of our growth over the last 4 or 5 years has come from taking share, and about 1/3 has come from market growth, I would estimate. And we just want vendors that will come on that journey with us. And it's not that difficult at the end of the day. We don't have a lot of issues with vendors. Some are better at it than others. Some do have a direct motion when they shouldn't. You know, there's obviously issues pop up from time to time. But our vendor community is pretty well behaved, pretty well aligned, and we enjoy working with them. In fact, I think one of the things we've managed to do over the last few years is extend our relationships from being mainly UK and Irish focused to layering on top of that an EMEA focus and a global focus, because, like I said before, being on the radar of our vendor partners on a global stage is very important too.
Mm-hmm. And you've got a relationship with a vendor, you've got multiple choices. Take the security space. There are endless numbers of security vendors. How does someone build size, build scale with Softcat when you've got 50, 60, 100 competitors?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, you know, as I said before, it's a fragment. So all of the things we've discussed, it's a fragmented market, and we're agnostic to an extent from a vendor point of view. So one of our jobs is to carry a range of vendors for any given technology. So I think there's quite a few people I've talked to in the less than a day since I've been here, who are already partnering with Softcat and partnering successfully with Softcat, some of them in the same space. So there's plenty of room to partner. But you know, ultimately, you know, if I had to drill down to 1 or 2 or 3 key things, having a technology that works, that's asked for by our customers, that we can successfully build and integrate into a solution for our customers and provides the right return, that's going to be a success.
Mm-hmm. And as you look forward, you've got all sorts of opportunities, challenges. Let's look at some of those. How does Softcat view the marketplaces, the hyperscalers? Are they a competitor? Are they competition? Where are they?
I was having this conversation with Rod last night and telling him that I was a lot more relaxed about hyperscalers today than I perhaps was 12 months ago. Hyperscalers are here. They play an important part in the market. They're our partners. So, you know, cloud, if we talk about the public cloud element of hyperscalers, lots of speculation years ago. I mean, they've been around for a long time now. Lots of speculation about whether VARs and distribution would get disintermediated. It's another change and complexity for our customers where they need help from us. And what workloads do you balance where? And we know that the vast majority, is over 90% now of our customers are operating in a hybrid infrastructure on a multi-cloud basis. So they are partners, that's fine. There's some rough edges there. Some of the touch they have with end users, some of the way they have more control over the cash flows. And we're probably getting into too much detail now, but there's, on multi-year agreements, they've left the liability with the VAR, with us. So if an end customer goes down in the middle of a multi-year agreement, not only we've always had the bad debt risk, but now we've got the risk of completing the multi-year agreement to term. So there's a few rough edges to be sorted out. On marketplace, again, I was very cynical about marketplaces. I still am to an extent. But I think if marketplaces are purely based around push from the hyperscalers, then there isn't a value that's sustainable. And we know that marketplaces are good for hyperscalers because they can earn transactional value on everything that's bought through them, and consumption, they get consumption value too. But I think if you look at the pull factors that are in play, ISVs want to be on marketplace because it's a great, easy, straightforward route to market very quickly. End customers want marketplaces because they get access to those ISVs. I think to a certain extent, VARs like Softcat are pulling demand through marketplaces because sometimes, not always, the margin opportunity is richer through marketplace than it is outside marketplace. And then there's the obvious pull of end users needing to burn down EDP commits. I think the only place, perhaps, where there's questions is I don't see the evolution of distribution value in marketplaces quite as clearly as perhaps distributions say they do. So, but that's just me being honest. So very definitely partners. I think today in the UK, we did a study recently, or we commissioned a study recently. About 5% of the UK business is going through marketplaces, and they thought that this particular study thought it would build to around 20-25% in the next 5 years. You've got some counter views on marketplaces that do you want to share?
I mean, we run a thing called the Channel Executive Council, which is 60 of the most important channel leaders globally, and anywhere you poll them, marketplaces are the number one. The hyperscalers, the marketplace environment is the number one fastest growing channel. When you get, and this has been in a public forum, so I'm not breaking any confidences, when you get someone like Red Hat standing up, very complex technology, what is your fastest growing channel? It's marketplaces. They're doing things today that none of us would have dreamed they could have done as little as 5 years ago. I think there's and there's also, I think, and I'd love your views on this, I think a big challenge coming up between marketplaces and distribution, and how do they both sit, what do they both do, and how does Softcat view that, and how do you view distribution moving forward?
So I can't really answer your first bit because I don't know, as I just said. I think distribution for us is important. About 40 or 45% of our procurement comes through distributors rather than direct from vendors. We have great relationships with them. They play an enormously important role in stocking, in buffering stock during the pandemic. They played a great role in helping us get allocation of inventory when it was tight. Credit's important, not just credit, but them being flexible in the way they manage credit in the channel is important. Third-party logistics, they're becoming increasingly important to Softcat for third-party logistics. We don't hold any inventory at all at Softcat. And things like sustainability, when we're refurbishing and returning goods from a sustainability point of view, they're really important for that. So I don't know, as I said before, I don't really see clearly yet what their role is in marketplaces. What I do see is a clear role for people like Softcat. At the end of the day, our customers need help, as I said before, with complexity, range of choice, and pace of change. And that hasn't changed. And they still need our help, and they're going to continue to get our help. They're buying in solutions, not spot point transactions from lots of different places. They want to buy an aggregated solution. They want to buy in solutions from a smaller number of people, of which hopefully Softcat is one of them, because we're selling in solutions.
Graeme, thank you very, very much indeed. I think some really terrific insights, some incredible openness about what it takes to build a relationship with Softcat. So please, a huge round of applause for Graeme Watt. And just to continue the conversation, two things quickly. If we can go back to the slides, guys at the front stage. We have a virtual event coming up. Part of what we're trying to do as an organization is increase people's understanding and ability to interact with the channel. And so we have Channel Focus Virtual coming up on the 17th and 18th of April. And we also have an exclusive network for professionals in major IT, cloud, telecom companies running complex channel programs. This is only for people in major companies running those programs. So if you qualify for that, please go in. It's deliberately very low cost. It's our way, because I passionately believe that all of you are part of a real career. The channel is not a dot in and out. The channel is a career for everyone, and it's a really valuable career, and it's bounded on everyone in the room to talk about that and to make it happen. Part of what we're trying to do is give people access to the ideas, the knowledge to make that happen. And this is one of the ways we're doing it. But to finish, Graeme, thank you very, very much indeed. That was absolutely fabulous. Huge round of applause for Graeme. Come on.
Thank you, Rod.